Hi there, this is Unmesh from PiXimperfect, and today I'm going to show you how to remove reflections from sunglasses in Photoshop. I have two examples for you so that we develop a better understanding. So without any further ado, let's get started. So here we are in Photoshop, and if you want to go ahead and download any of the photos, you know what to do, check the links in the description. Alright, so let's have a look. Her sunglasses have a lot of reflection. If we zoom in, I already went ahead and removed the reflections. Have a look. This is the before and this is the after. Looks wonderful, doesn't it? So I'm going to start all over again so that we can understand how we did it. Alright, so let's go ahead and delete it. And this is how the image will look when you first open it. So the first thing that we have to do is to make a selection of the glasses, and this selection has to be perfect. And to have perfect selection of anything around hard edges, what we need to do? We need to use the pen tool. Alright, so let's zoom in quite a bit. Control or Command plus to zoom in, or hold the spacebar and the Control or Command. Drag it to the right to make it zoomed in, drag it to the left to zoom out. Alright, so let's zoom in quite a bit, and let's take the pen tool by pressing the letter P. Alright, now let's make a selection of the right glass. You want to make sure that you make the paths separate, the right glass and the left glass. Alright, so let's zoom in and make sure the pen tool is selected, the regular pen tool, not the curvature pen tool, and make a very precise selection of the glass. If there's an edge, make sure you stay inside and you just select the glass. Alright, so let's start, make a point over there. Alright, that's pretty good. You know what to do, right? Click and drag, just like that. Click and drag. And by the way, again, I would repeat, if you want to learn how to use the pen tool, check this video out on mastering the pen tool right from scratch. And by the end of it, you will know everything that you need to know about the pen tool. So a very important video, you need to watch that if you haven't yet. Alright, so let's adjust it. And this is one of the great things about the pen tool is that once you make a path, you can adjust that later by holding the Control or Command. You can adjust these points, easy. You can adjust these handles the way you like and continue with that. Alright. Now I've already done it, so I won't take you to the whole process of doing it, but I'm just quickly doing it. Make sure it's precise. It's not precise over here. Make sure it's very precise, like it should be on point, on the edge. All right. Adjust it. Okay. I think there's an insect here. Anyway, so this is the way you make it. Now this is not perfect. We need to adjust it properly. But you get the idea. Okay, so if we go to the Paths tab, you will see the work path. The work path is the path that we are working on. If you name it, I'll just double click on the name, double click on the work path, and let's name it Glass Right Test. So this is what we are doing right now. Now these two are the paths which we already made, that I already made before recording this tutorial. So these are perfect ones. So let's go ahead and delete this. That's how we make it. Now, once you make it, just like we did, make sure you rename it so that they are saved. And that's the way we made both of them, glass left and glass right. Let's delete it. So we already have the glass right, perfect selection of this, really looking nice. Now, we need to make a selection of this path. How can we do that? By holding the Control or Command, clicking on the thumbnail. This makes a selection. Now, you cannot go with this selection. Why not? If you press Q, this takes us into the quick mask mode. And this exactly shows you the selection in the form of a mask. Red are the areas which are not selected. Colored areas are the areas which are selected. But as you can see, the edges are very sharp. And that's not the case in real life. So we need to blur it out. Once you jump into the quick mask mode, there are two ways to blur it out: by using Gaussian blur and manually blurring it out. Let's apply a Gaussian blur, going to filter, blur, and then let's apply Gaussian blur, probably 2.0. 2.0 is pretty fine. No, that's kind of too much. Let's go 1.4. Looks pretty good. Hit OK. Now for the areas which need some extra blur, you can use the blur tool. All right. and just simply blur this area out. It's pretty good. You can blur this area if you want to, but I think it's perfect in this case. All right, this is great. Zoom out. Now, once you're done softening the selection, press Q again to return to the selection with the marching ants. So this is necessary when you have soft focus or in images where you have shallow depth of field where part of the glass is blurry. All right, now that we have a selection, let's save the selection because we're going to use it multiple times. So how can we save a selection? Once you return into the marching ant selection mode, then all you have to do, go to select and save selection, as simple as that, and name it glass right or right, whatever you like. Hit OK. Now it saves as a channel. Press Ctrl or Command D to let go of it. Come back to the channels. You see the selection is already saved over there. Now let's do the same with the left glass. Let's go to the parts, hold the Ctrl or Command, glass left, click on over there. As you can see, selection is there. Do we need to soften an edge and do we need to make some adjustments? Have a look. Not all of it is selected. So press Ctrl or Command D and we need to adjust the path. All right. So let's go to the glass left, click on it. So the path is not perfect. It's perfect over here, but it's kind of not great. So let's adjust it. So hold the Ctrl or Command, click on the path and then just adjust the handles, the points, and make sure it's perfect. All right, that is great. Over here, we need to make some adjustments. We need to pull it down. We need to create one more point over here. So get to the pen tool, just click and hold the Ctrl or Command, drag it, just like that. Easy, right? So this is perfect. We need to create one more point, hold the Ctrl or Command, drag it and adjust these handles. Okay, looks fine to me. Looks pretty good. Now let's make a selection of it by holding the Ctrl or Command, clicking on this one. Now we have a selection. Press Q to see whether the selection is right. It's pretty good. It's not bad. We need to soften it up a little bit. And there's a little bit area left over here. So we can take the brush and make the brush smaller by clicking on the drop down menu and using the size, or you can hold the Alt or Option, the right mouse button, drag it to the right to make it big, drag it to the left to make it small. And by the way, I just said Alt or Option, but if you're on Mac, you have to hold Option, Control, and then drag with the right mouse button. Okay. Windows, it would be Alt and then drag with the right mouse button. So in Mac, you have an extra key. So paint this area in black. Make sure it's red. Okay. I'm going to paint extra areas in white. So make sure any area which is selected is in color, any area which is not selected is in red. Now it might be completely opposite for you depending upon what you have selected in the quick mask settings. So if you want to go to the quick mask settings, just double click here. Look at the settings. Color indicates masked areas, which means anything which is in red color or any color that you select is not selected. If you choose selected areas, anything which is in red color is selected. So I have chosen masked areas, hit OK. All right, so that is pretty good. Hit Q again. We need to soften it up a little bit, but this side it is okay. We just need to soften up this side. So with the blur tool, we'll just soften it up like that. See, you can also decrease the strength of the blur if you want to, but that's fine for me. All right, that's pretty good. Hit Q again to come back. Zoom out a little bit and then let's save the selection as well by going to Select, Save Selection, and we can name it Glass Left. Okay, that is saved. Press Ctrl or Command D. Now let's come back to layers and make a copy of the background layer. Now the first step is blurring it. Okay, make a copy of the background layer by pressing Ctrl or Command J. Now we need to make a selection of both of these glasses, the left and the right. So let's go to the channels, holding the Ctrl or Command, click on glass right, makes a selection of this one. If you also want to make a selection of the other one, hold the Shift key along the Control key and click on that. So along with this also will be selected. So select this one, then hold the Shift key and the Control key together, Command key if you're using a Mac, in place of Control, and click on the other one. Then come back to layers, make sure both of them are selected. Go to Filter, Blur, and then Gaussian Blur. Now let's blur it to the point where it seems okay. For me, I guess it's kind of too much. Let's go 14-ish. Let's see how 14 looks. 14 is great, it's not bad. Let's zoom out and have a look at it. 14 is great. Or probably 13. Let's go with 14. Now, it's a decision that might take time for you to make, but make the right decision and hit OK. Alright, now press Ctrl or Command D to let go of the marching ants. The next step would be to remove the blur from the areas where we want the details. If we zoom in and have a look, since we applied the blur, the edges, which means the frame in this case, also poured into the glass. So we have to remove a part of it, and that will happen. Alright, so here's what we need to do. Also, to avoid this, what we could have done is that we just made a copy of the glass on another layer and then applied the blur. But if we did that, the edges wouldn't have been blurred inside of the glass. That would have created another problem. So it's okay to have a little bit spill over, because anyway, we're going to remove it and we're going to paint over it. So let's name this layer Blur, and let's create a mask by clicking on the mask button. Now take the brush and make sure the foreground color is black and decrease the flow to somewhere around 10%. That's fine. Now what is the concept of mask? Black are the areas which do not show up and white are the areas which show up. If inside of the mask I take the brush and paint in black, the blur will remove. Let's increase the flow. The blur will remove and the original image or the background layer will appear. Simple concept of mask. Let's go back and simply decrease the flow this time, 10, and just paint around the edges or the areas where you want the details back in. For example, this area we want the skin to be there. And it's okay if we have a little bit reflection of the nearby areas, like the frame. It's okay, that looks natural. Now we painted a little extra, we have to paint some areas in white back again. Okay, this is extra. Press X to make sure the foreground color is white and paint back in these areas. This is pretty good. Now, I see a problem here. The selection was not perfect. See, a very tiny little bit is left over here. What to do now? Don't need to fuss about it. All you have to do, come back to the layer, select the blur tool and just blur it out like that. Easy. Nothing to worry about. Let's do it properly. Let's make the brush a little smaller, and I think the selection was perfect. It's spilling over. Let's leave it at that. It's cool. Or what we can also do is that we can make a selection and then blur it. So we can use the pen tool or whatever we like. Let's just temporarily make a selection around it. I think we need to do it because it's just annoying me a little bit. So there we go. And just a simple selection. Right click, make selection. There, where is make selection? There it is. Hit OK, make sure the feather is 0. Hit OK. And with the blur tool, let's blur it out. Control or Command D. I think it was perfect. Let's leave it at that. Or this is good as well. Let's zoom out and let's see. Let's see the before. Yeah, this was not bad. Now you might have to do this from time and again. And also keep in mind that we are going to paint it, so it doesn't really matter, right? So let's go forward. It doesn't really matter, this thing. We're gonna paint over it. Okay, so for the left hand side, zoom in and make sure the mask is selected. Take the brush and then foreground color black and start painting around the edges. Or any place where you think there should be reflection. For example, the reflection of the hair is okay and it should be there. It's okay to paint a little bit extra and then remove that later by painting in white. Press X to toggle between the foreground and the background, and then just paint on those areas where you want to remove stuff. If you want to remove the hair reflection, you can do that as well, but I'm going to leave it at that. That's okay for me. Let's zoom out and have a look. Press Ctrl or Command 0 to fit the canvas to screen. It's pretty good, looks pretty nice. Zoom in, and you can leave it at that actually. But we're gonna paint, because that's the fun part. Alright. Alright, now once you're satisfied with this, all you have to do, create an empty layer. Okay? Create an empty layer, and we can name it probably Paint Right. This is for the right hand side. Now create one more layer. Okay? In this layer, we will sample the colors that we are going to paint with. Okay? So all you have to do, make sure you have the brush selected. The flow is at 100. Hardness is also at 100. You can also increase the hardness by holding the Alt and the right mouse button, drag it up to make it soft, drag it down to make it hard. With the Mac, that would be Option and Control and then drag. Okay. Hardness is 100, and we are just sampling colors that we're going to paint with. Okay. So to sample, hold the Alt or Option, click on it, and just paint at the top. This is just sampling purposes. Also make sure that with the eyedropper tool selected, it is point sample this time, because anyway we have blurred it, doesn't really matter. We don't need to average the colors. Point sample, then take the brush and then sample. So this color is going to be at the top. At the side, we're going to have somewhere around this color. So let's paint side with this one, and we will paint in the same structure. And in the middle, kind of, we have this color. We also have this color. At the side, we have kind of this color. And we also have this color on the left. And that's pretty fine. That's all the colors that we need. Next, we need to come back to the Paint Right layer. Now we need to create a mask so that the colors don't go out of the glass. So we already have the selection. Go to the channels, Glass Right, hold the Control or Command, click on it, and then create a mask out of it. Okay. Now, anytime you paint with the brush, if you take the brush and anytime you paint whatever, just make sure the mask is not selected with the layer. Brush or paint whatever you like. See, it just doesn't get out of the glass. That's the great part. Now, let's see whether the selection is right or not, or the mask is right or not. Mask is right at this point. We need to just make the mask a little bit to the edge. So with a pen tool, let's refine the mask. And that's why having a good selection is very essential. Okay. Select this, right click, make selection, hit OK, paint that area in white. Alt, backspace. Make sure the foreground color is white. Alt, backspace to fill that. Control or Command D to let go of it. Now this is perfect. We need to blur it just a little bit with the blur tool, and strength we'll keep it 20-ish. That is fine. And let's blur it just a little bit. It's fine. Now let's save this selection as perfect. So once we have the mask ready, we can hold the Control or Command, select the mask again, and then let's save it. Select, save selection. That was not perfect. Glass Right. Let's name it correct. Hit OK. And let's go to channels and let's delete the old one, Glass Right. This was not perfect. Let's delete it. You don't need it. Control or Command D. Let's come back to layers. So we didn't need to fill it with purple. This is something which I showed you just for demonstration. So let's erase that with the eraser or anything you like. Just erase that. Okay. Now let's take the brush. Make sure it's very big. Make sure it's very soft. And then start sampling and painting. So first go with the middle color. So this is the middle color. So we'll just make the brush big enough and paint with it. Flow you can decrease to 20-ish and start painting. Yeah, that looks fine. Okay, now let's sample the top color and give it a shine at the top. Okay, now what we need to do, decrease the flow to 10%. So that we get more leeway into the number of times we can paint. Alright, this is great. On the left hand side we had this color, so sample that color and just paint from the left. Like that. Okay. Now I know this looks cartoonish, but you have to wait. So on the right hand side we have that color, so just a little bit tinge of that color on the right. You see how this is going? This is a build up. Alright, so at the bottom we had this color, so we'll take a sample from that and paint at the bottom. This side a little bit of that color. That's fine, it's looking great to me. So what else? If you want a little bit of that color, we can do that as well. So you've got the basic look of the glass. If you want, you can just sample a brighter color as well. Let's sample this color and make it even more brighter by double clicking over here. Let's go to B and make it brighter. You can also decrease the saturation and make it white-ish. Hit OK, and then you can also brighten it even more if you want to. Anytime you're doing such stuff, make sure to zoom out and have a look whether that's looking realistic or not. Okay, that is great. So let's have a look at the before and after. So this is the before, this is the after. The overall before and after. So this is the before, this is the after. Now this is looking really bad. So we need to decrease what? The opacity. Let's decrease the opacity. We don't need complete. So let's gradually increase it to the point where we like it. Okay, 75, 76, let's keep it 70 or 80-ish. 80 is fine, let's zoom in and have a look. This is fine, have a look. Before, after, it's pretty good. Now let's add a curves adjustment layer to add some contrast to it. Click on the adjustment layer icon and choose curves. Now we want to make sure that it's applied only to this area overall. So with the mask selected, let's go to the channels. Glass right correct, or we can rename it to glass right, doesn't really matter. By holding the control or command, click on that. Come back to layers. Now we want to make sure that this area is painted in white and the rest of the areas in black. However, here's what we have to do in this case. Press X, make sure the foreground color is black. Paint this area in black because rest of the area is already in white. Alt, backspace. This area is now in black, have a look. Now in black, press Ctrl or Command D. Now we simply invert this. With the mask selected, press Ctrl or Command I to invert it. Come back to the properties by clicking on the layer thumbnail or the symbol. It brings back the properties of the curves. And let's work on this thing. It's pretty good, looking great. Now if you want, you can just play along. Do whatever you like. Let's zoom out and let's have a look. It's looking pretty darn good. Have a look. Before, after. Wonderful. Now, we will bring some textures into that. Don't worry about that. But before, we need to do this one. So let's collapse this and let's do this side and create a new layer. And this time, we will name it Paint Left. Simply go to the channels. Make sure glass left is selected by holding the controller command. Click on that one, come back to the layers, and then click on the mask button. Now simply take the brush and we need to take samples. So for sample, we have this layer and we can also name it sample layer. And this is just for demonstration. And take the brush, make it harder, make sure the flow is this time 100%. And this side we have this color, on this side we have that color. We also have a brighter version for the bright areas. We have a dark color. And for the middle, we have this color and let's just paint it. And that's pretty much wraps it up. I think we need to sample it properly. Yeah, okay. Now make the brush bigger, make it softer, decrease the flow to 20%. Come back to this layer, not the mask, come back to the layer and then paint it. At the top, we have this. So we will just paint like that. Go with the middles first and then paint the bright ones around the corners. That helps you add that dimension. So this is the middle color. I'm gonna paint in the middle like that. It's looking flat. However, wait for it. Now let's sample the dark color and paint around the edge. You see how the dimension shows up? Okay, let's sample this color and this edge. Now let's sample this color and add that dimension at the top. Sample a brighter color, add more dimension, darker color here. Yeah, That is great. Now if you want to sample brighter colors, sample from this, it doesn't really matter. And you get this. Okay, it's pretty good. Looking great, wonderful. No problem at all. Now once you have painted it, I would suggest that you zoom out and have a look before you move forward. So once we zoom out, let's have a look at it. It's looking pretty good. Do we need to make some adjustments? Let's try brightening up this area just for trial. Let's sample this. Let's try brightening up a little bit that area. Yep, adds a kind of dimension. Let's darken the left hand side. Okay, that looks great. Let's go with it. Now let's decrease what? The opacity and increase it gradually to the point where you think it's okay. 85 or 85, it's fine. Or let's go with 90. That's fine. Now it's time for us to add curves. So click on the adjustment layer icon and choose curves. We would need the same mask again, so let me show you a trick. Instead of going to channels and making a selection, what you can also do by holding the Alt or Option, click on the previous mask, drag it and drop it over here. Replace layer mask? Yes. So we just copied the mask by holding the Alt or Option, clicking and dragging from the previous paint left and dropping it over here. Alright, so click on the symbol or the icon and let's adjust it. Alright, zoom out and have a look. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Now let's collapse this. Now one more step that we can do is make a group of all of this. The paint layers, press Ctrl or Command G, and we can name this paint. What we can also do, create a mask of it, and we can remove the paint from the areas where we don't like it. So with the brush, select, make sure the foreground color is black. Flow this time, let's go 5%, and let's paint on the areas where we don't want the paint. All right, so this is okay. You wanted a little bit paint over there, that was fine. At the bottom. Also, if you want the reflection of the hair, so you can paint over here if you want to. For the nearby areas, it looks great. Paint back in the areas where you do not want reflection. Okay, that's pretty great. But there's one thing missing, you know, and that thing is a little bit of texture. I know this is glass. I know this is meant to be smooth, but if we can add a little bit of texture to it, that would be awesome. We needed the texture, so I went ahead and searched for an image with sunglasses but without any reflections. So here's what I found. Let's have a look. We have the sunglasses but no reflections, and it has the texture that we crave for. So all we have to do, just copy this over. So what we can do, just click and drag this layer and drop it over this document. Also, you could have just pressed Ctrl or Command A, selected all, Ctrl or Command C, and then Ctrl or Command V, lots of ways of doing it. Now let's make it smaller, Ctrl or Command D, like that. Make it sizable. And as you can see in this, the light is coming from the left, so we need to flip it, as in the background the light is coming from the right. Right click on it and choose Flip Horizontal. Now let's make it of similar size, but a little bigger. This is okay. Hit Enter. This is fine. Now let's convert this into a smart object so that we can change the values of high pass later. Yes, we're gonna apply high pass to just retain the texture. So filter, convert for smart filters. Hit OK. This converts this into a smart object. Now what we need to do, go to Filter, Other, High Pass. Okay. Now let's keep it at 0.1. Let's zoom in and keep on increasing. And just when you see the texture showing up inside of the glass, stop. We want more and more texture. Not enough. I think this is enough. 25. Let's keep it at 25. Hit OK. And then change the blend mode from normal to overlay. You could have also discolored it if you wanted, but I'm going to leave it at that. Overlay. Now let's copy it, just drag it over this lens or glass, whatever you call it. Okay, now we need to mask this out. We already have that. Go to the channels, hold the Ctrl or Command glass right, just click on that, come back to layers, create a mask. See, that's limited to that. And now we have this amazing texture. If you want to move the texture, come back to the layer. And if you move it, it will move with the mask. We don't want that to happen. So click on this link button. That way the mask and the layer become separate. Now you can move the texture accordingly. You can make it bigger, do whatever you like. I'm gonna leave it at that. Wonderful. Let's do the same thing for the left hand side. So just simply make a copy of this one, press Ctrl or Command J, and we need to alter the mask. Click on the mask button, Ctrl or Command A, and then fill everything with black. Press X, make sure the foreground color is black. Alt backspace, fill everything with black. Or you could have also deleted the mask and created the mask again. Same thing. Press Ctrl or Command D to let go of the marching ants. But you might say there was no marching ants. Yes, there was, but you couldn't see it. It was like this, right? Ctrl or Command D. It was zoomed in and that's why you couldn't see it. All right, now do the same thing. Go to the channels, select glass left, and then paint that area in white because we want to show that area. So Alt backspace, make sure the foreground color is white. Alt backspace, Option delete, and there we go. Press Ctrl or Command D. Break the link. Link is already broken, and then we move it. The mask is moved. We didn't want that to happen. Make sure the layer is selected. We want to move the layers. So yeah, this is fine. Let's zoom out, press Ctrl or Command 0 and have a look at it. Wonderful, isn't it? Now we need to delete the sample layer or just simply turn it off. All right, removed. Have a look at it. Isn't this wonderful? Let's have a look before, after. And at any point of time, if you think anything is too much, you can always decrease what? The opacity. If you think the paint is too much, decrease the opacity. As simple as that, right? To make it more realistic, decrease the opacity. And you can decrease the opacity and it looks pretty good, right? Looks pretty good. Zoom in. Yeah, you can do that. But I'm gonna leave it at probably 92 or let's keep it at 96. This is fine. You can also decrease the opacity of the texture if you want to, of individual curves, adjustment layers if you want to. Everything is in your hands. And we are done with example number 1. Let's move to the second example, and in this example we're going to be talking about an extra thing which we can do to make it even more realistic, and that was not required in the first image. By the way, this image was submitted by Bob Stein. Thank you so much, Bob, for this photo. He's an amazing friend of mine. Alright, so let's have a look at it. I already did it so that you don't have to go through the complete process. So blurred it out just like we do. Alright, then colored it. Simple. Colored the left one, added the texture to both of them, and then we did an extra thing to make it even more realistic. And that is the glare. Let's have a look at it. Isn't this wonderful? And here's how to do it. I'm going to show it. Let's delete it. After you add the texture, what we can do to emulate some reflections, it's simple to do. With the pen tool selected, let's press P to select the pen tool, and we can make any shape. So let's make something like this, or this. And it can also be a square or anything you like. Let's adjust it. Okay. And make a shape, something like this. Make a selection of it, right click and choose Make Selection. 0 pixels feather, hit OK. And then fill this area with white. Create a new layer and fill it with white. Make sure the foreground color is white, and then Alt backspace. Okay, press Ctrl or Command D. Now we need to limit it just to the glass. So here's how we do it. We already might have the selection somewhere here. Texture right here. The same selection which went with the texture. I didn't go to the channels because I didn't save it in this case. So let's mask it out. Yeah, it's done. Now, most crucial part, decrease the opacity. Let's keep it somewhere around 4%, 6% is fine. And wonderful, isn't it? Now, if you want, it's very sharp, right? Very sharp. So we can add a blur to it. Make sure the layer is selected. Go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian blur. You can apply probably 1.6, 1.4. Not too much. We need this to be sharp. 1.4, okay. And then break the link so that you can move it the way you like it. If you want just a little bit of it, if you want more of it, you can rotate it if you like it. like this, and this is fine. Yep. Satisfied? Okay. Now for the second glass also, you can do this. Just make a copy of it. Press Ctrl or Command J, and this time we need to alter the mask. So let's delete the mask. Okay, delete it, and then go to whatever you like. Make sure you bring up the selection of the left hand side, and then we will create a mask of that. Break the link, come back to the layer, move it to the left hand side, and adjust it the way you like it. I think in the left hand side, the opacity would be lower, 4%. Yep. Zoom out. See the glare? Wonderful, isn't it? So we can adjust it the way you like it. Probably you want to rotate it if you want to. Yeah. For the left hand side, a little bit of rotation. Let's go with 3. And for this one, let's go with 5. Now you might have to adjust it, but this really emulates the reflection. Let's have a look at the before and after. So this is the before, this is the after, and that's pretty much done. Now the glare is completely optional. If that doesn't look good to you, you can just opt out of it. Make a group of both of these, press Ctrl or Command G, turn it off, turn it on, see how that looks. Also what we can do, it's not necessary that you have this shape. You can also have square as well. So let's go ahead and choose the eraser and just erase all of this. Alrighty. Take the pen tool back again, and you can also make a square if you want to, something like this. Probably something like that. Okay. Make a selection, right click on it, make selection, hit OK, and fill it with white. Alt backspace. That looks even better. Yeah, that looks nice, right? Doesn't it? So you can make anything you like. Let's move it accordingly, right? So that's totally upon what you want to do. Make sure you have the same shape on both the glasses. All right, so let's go ahead and delete this. We don't need just turn it off. We need the mask. Make a copy of this one, Ctrl or Command J, and then just replace this mask with this one. Replace layer mask, yes, and move it. Break the link. Link is already broken, and move it to this one. Maybe you need a little more or a little less, depending upon what you're looking for, and you're done. Or maybe just invert it. Zoom in, Ctrl or Command T, invert, flip horizontal, and it's looking even stranger. We need to adjust it, or probably something like this. And you get the idea, right? So if this is square, you can just continue square and then just make the shape. And you can make any shape that you like. This is probably looking much better than that one. That's totally upon what kind of reflection that you want to create. So this is the after, and this is the before. Huge difference, isn't it? Time to switch to example number 3. And this is not an example. It's actually a homework for you. Since you have watched it so long, it would be highly appreciated that you take this image. I'm going to give you this image. You need to work on it. You need to remove the reflection from the sunglasses. And then what you need to do, you need to post it on Twitter. Tag me and add the hashtag PiXassignment1. And the best work will be featured in an upcoming video. So buckle up. Do this if you want to. I just wanted to have fun, give you some homework if you want to really learn Photoshop. Work on this image, post it, and that's all for this video. And that's how we remove the reflection from sunglasses in Photoshop. Just a quick little recap. First of all, you have your image with all these reflections. We need to make a selection, make a path, right? Get into quick mask mode, blur it out, do whatever you want to, come back and save that selection. Okay, once the selection is saved, make sure you blur it, both of them, to the point where it looks natural, and then paint it, just like we did. Make sure the mask is intact, sample the colors that you want, and then paint. Simply just paint with the brush. Add dimension to it, add curves adjustment layers to add more dimension and contrast to that. Once we paint that, add a texture. I already gave you the image of the texture. You can also use some other image. Just search for it, you'll get it, or create your own image if you want to. Add that texture to make it more realistic. Now, if you want to double up the texture, just double this. Press Ctrl or Command J and just double this. Now it's working on it because there's a lot of smart filters. Yes. Now, as you can see, the texture is doubled. Have a look. Before with just one, after. You can also decrease the opacity of this one. And there we go. adds much more naturality. And at the end, if required, you can also add some glare of any shape that you like. You can also use black and then decrease the opacity. It's totally upon you. I used white. I hope this video helped you, and if it did, make sure to give us a like, and also do not forget to subscribe, and not just subscribe, ring the bell so that you, my friend, don't miss a thing. I would like to take this moment to thank all these nice people for supporting this channel on Patreon and helping keep PiXimperfect free for everybody forever. Thank you so much for all the support. I'll see you guys in my next one. Till then, stay tuned and make sure that you keep creating.